Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of the Better Events podcast. We have an exciting episode today. We're going to deep dive and give you lots of tips and tricks. We love these kind of episodes. We know you love these kind of episodes, but we are doing an event process deep dive where we discuss with me actually about day of event management and how that begins from hiring to actually executing just day of. And so we're excited to share this episode with you, and let's go ahead and get into it.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hi, friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Logan Clements, and I'm joined by fellow co-host Mary Davidson. And this week, we're taking you behind the scenes in a deep dive about one of our event processes. But before we do that, we've got our conversation starter. Mary, back to school has already happened. Neither of us are in school, but we know it happens. What is a fond memory you have of back to school times from your younger years?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad that I'm not going back to school. So I, of course, have some fond memories, but my overall emotion is like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that's not me. Really happy to be done with school years. But that being said, I loved the school supplies part of the school year, getting the things that you want to use for the year or whatever. Like specifically, I remember this like lunch box that I had that was so cute. I don't even remember what it was, but it was like purple and there was lots of components inside of it. But it like was a bad lunchbox because I remember I would drop it at school and it would pop open and everything would fall out. But I liked it. Just functionally, it was a bad lunchbox. But that is the memory that's coming to mind today. So there you go. Logan, what about you? What's a back to school memory from your younger years?
Oh, you can tell this is why both of us are in events because I remembered the crisp planner. Like our school gave us a planner or an agenda book. I can't remember what they called it, but something to help you keep track of assignments and homework and tests and stuff. And I just remember whenever it was like brand new, it's like full of possibilities. It's open. And then I feel like as you were talking, Mary, my other part was I feel like I got really excited about finding out who was in my classes. Like, and once you're in like middle school and high school and you get your class schedule and like with your best friends, you'd already have compared, like, do we have any classes together? But I feel like that first day of then really realizing like who else is in your class of, finding out what class is going to be a fun social one and which one might be a little more awkward.
It makes me excited, but also gives me anxiety.
Yeah. Well, and then like not positives. I'm like, oh, I feel like I used to stress about what you wear on the first day of school. Like it just felt like a statement. And I was really happy whenever I had sporting events that like we'd all wear our jerseys or something. I was like, thank God there's something to wear. Like I don't have
Yeah.
to think about it. Yeah.
I'm assuming you didn't go to a school with a uniform then. Is that
no uniform? No,
yeah, me neither.
open dress code, but
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if that was better or worse.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, fun. Okay, fond memories. But we're going to shift away from that now and talk about another fond memory that we have coming up that will for sure give you fond memories. The 2025 Better Events Conference. We would love to see you on Wednesday, October 1st, virtually, which is coming up here really soon, and or Thursday, December 18th, in person in Seattle. We have information in the show notes where you can look at tickets and just get more information about the conference. We truly would love to see you there. So now we're going to get into our topic for today. We chose this topic because we love deep diving with you all. And I think that we've learned that you love it too, giving you some really tangible tips and tricks and examples about events and things like that. So today we're going to share our detailed processes with you, actually for the next 2 episodes. So for today, we're going to be talking about one of my processes. Logan and I each chose kind of like a certain process that we really wanted to hone in on that we do fairly often. And so this one is for me. So get ready to take some notes and we'll get into it.
Yes, I think this is a fun one. This is where honestly, Mary, I wish other people did this so that I would get to be a fly on the wall in their process. But listeners, congratulations, you get to be a fly on the wall on our 2 processes. So, yeah, as Mary mentioned, we're going to be talking more about her process of being a day of event management team. So, talking about what that means, and we're going to kind of take you through from hired to the actual like scope and execution of that role. And this is really helpful if you're looking about adding this to your scopes. It also might be interesting if you're the one who helps hire these people or thinks you might need some of these like checks, needs that Mary's going to lay out here. So to start, Mary, we like to be broad. Can you explain this service offering with an example of a typical event?
Absolutely. So day of management feels pretty straightforward, but what I've learned as we've done this is it actually means different things to different people. So it's not as simple as it may seem. For us, what this means is we will provide a team. Sometimes it is one person, sometimes it is more than one person who will go on site to an event day and execute. Usually it's an event manager and then maybe some additional roles depending on the need. High level, this is not just day up. It will always require some type of prep meeting to be successful. And so we'll talk more about what that looks like, but this is what we're talking about. It's going on site and executing and preparing yourself in a way to be successful just doing that. It's no other pre-event process. So yeah, I'm excited to share more about it. And an example, just to kind of further send the point home. So we, as you know, do a lot of nonprofit events. So a nonprofit, for example, will come to us when they have a very limited budget. Maybe it's their first year doing an event. This happens sometimes. And they know they need help. They know that day of, their job needs to be stewardship and talking to donors and building relationships. So they need somebody else to execute it. That's when they come to us and they, see what it takes and what kind of a team we can bring to support them. And that's what this process will represent today.
Yeah. And I think also it's like you guys are experts, right? So handing you a plan and saying, do it, you're going to get so much that expertise and that level of experience versus like a volunteer, or which I think in your nonprofit example, a lot of people are like, well, we have volunteers who help us do these things. It's like, yeah, but does that volunteer do events all the time? Where if if they give you, Mary, a floor plan, you know what the things mean versus all the questions that maybe someone who's inexperienced would ask. So yeah, I'm excited to dive into this. We do interrupt this podcast episode so you can hear from one of our lovely partners of the pod, Audio Engineers Northwest, and its founder, Sean Walker, with your monthly audio tip from the experts.
Hey, it's Sean with Audio Engineers Northwest, back with another tip. This week's question was, what's your advice for a planner who has the same or less budget than last year, but increased expectations from their client or leadership if you're internal? Well, candidly, I couldn't even begin to tell you how to run your company or handle your clients, since they're all different and unique. What I can share is my experience from my own company and see if there's any synergies that line up and hopefully help you. I'll be candid, I'm a little nervous to be this vulnerable since you'd be the client in this case, but I think it'll help, so here it goes. When I run into this at Audio Engineers Northwest, it's usually not a budget problem, honestly. It's more often than not a value problem. It happens when I haven't done a great job of showing our value. I get this popping up when I try and shortcut our sales process and treat it like a gear transaction because I'm in a hurry. When the call goes like, hello, ballroom, yep, 24 boxes of blah, 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 flown and 16 wireless mics for a week. Great, here's your price. Like, that's old school rental think. Like grumpy old sound guy stuff. I know, old habits die hard. But we're in 2025. Nobody is down with that. So we're on show think now. That's more like, how do we get the show done to the best of our abilities and make our client look like a rock star to their client? Some things that have popped up in the past that have made budget less sensitive and success more important are, things like, do they need a generator but can't get it delivered on a Saturday? Is the staging vendor a PETA and they'd love to eliminate that headache but don't know who else to call? Offer to connect them with your preferred vendor or just tell them you can supply it for them, no problem. I mean, everybody in town, pick your faves and help your client. Find the other things you can do to help that are pains in the butt for the client, but are easy for you to solve for them. For example, we only do audio. We're obsessed with it, honestly, but we make a one-stop shop for our clients all the time by bringing in rock star trusted partners for lighting, video, decor, float plane tours, whatever they need to relieve some stress. The trick is to uncover the actual needs of the client rather than what we thought their needs were, which in turn has transformed our value from audio gear vendor to actual strategic partner that they can't live without. You'll be stunned as to how much that helps with the budget problem. But for the select few that actually have a budget problem, just Chris Voss them. Ask him, how am I supposed to do that? And shut the front door and let them think and answer, and then take action accordingly. I hope this was helpful. If you guys got any AV questions or just want somebody to brainstorm with, I'm here for you, no charge. You can email me at sean@audioengineersnw.com or call or text me at 360-386-4500. I hope you guys have an awesome week doing some killer events. Send pictures. I can't wait to see them.
Thanks so much, Sean. Listeners, again, I do double down. Please reach out to him if you have any audio questions. Sean has been an amazing supporter of the Better Events community. If you went to our conference last year, you might have met him. And he is just such a good expert to have in your back pocket if you're looking for any advice on how to make the most of your audio, visual, or production budget these days. So definitely go check him out. We put the link in the show notes. But without further ado, let's get back to the episode. Let's start with the proposal phase where you are pitching this to someone. What services do you actually list on your proposals for this kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's really 3 sections on the proposal. And the first one is what I'll call event familiarization. It's like pre-event. It is the pre-event stuff that occurs. And what this is the minimum that we require to be successful in this role. And that is at least a 1-hour handoff meeting with the client. And in that meeting, we go over all the major logistics. We go over the timeline, the final vendor list, just literally, you all know events, whatever information we need to be successful. And so we do not like to have this meeting any sooner than a week before the event. And that's an area where we get pushback on this. Sometimes they want to meet sooner. And I'm like, I don't want to hear anything about your planning. I want to hear the final information. That is what this scope is. And so with that, we also add in an hour of just reviewing all the event materials, the contracts, the venue contract specifically, so we can really help make sure that we're following those rules day of, the vendor contracts, and then just any materials, any scripts that we might need to be aware of, the timeline, all of that. And so what we ask of the client for us to be successful is for them to prepare those materials and then send us the link, and we'll just take time to look it all over. So those are the 2 pre-event items, I would say. So that's why it's not truly day of, right? Because you have to take the time to be a little bit more intentional to be successful. And then the next step is actually day of. And like I've said before, that team might look different. It might be one person or it might be multiple people. But that's your typical event management, regardless of what, your scope might be that you support an event. That's what this is. It's day of on-site management. And then the third piece is post-events. We still will have a debrief meeting with them if they would like it, because it's still an event. We still have tons of lessons learned and things that can be implemented for the future. So we still want to have that wrap-up opportunity. So those are the 3 pieces.
And those all make a lot of sense. I feel like if you didn't have those 2 crucial pre-event pieces, then that's information. You need that information regardless. So now you're wasting day of time asking those questions. And then I love that you're adding value afterward, where it's not just you do the event and you walk away. You're providing, again, your expertise. So super valuable, but I know it's a smaller package than some of the full planning you do. Why do you think, I don't feel like everyone I've come across in the event industry offers something like this. So why do you think that is, that other companies aren't really offering this day of service?
Yeah, I think where we are specifically in the industry we serve locally, this is something that makes us unique. And I've kind of found that because many other companies have shared that they don't want to be put in these situations where it is a hot mess. And we'll get more into that. But that's one of the biggest things about day of management work is that it's a hot mess. As much as you can prepare, it is really challenging because at the end of the day, you are getting thrown into a situation when you're just doing day of management, right? Even those 2 hours of preparation time, and you're using your expertise, and that's why you're valuable, is because you can figure out how to react, but you're reacting to stuff that's happening because you weren't involved sooner than that. And so I think that's why people don't want it. It's not worth it to them. There's I would say a higher level of stress in a way. But I love it. I have to say, like, this is why we offer it. Being on site is one of my favorite things. I hope my team feels the same way, since now I'm sending them to do this. But I think it's something that is unique, and I think that it is a need. Sometimes it's the only thing that somebody can afford. So just deciding if that's worth it for you as well.
Yeah. And I think have you seen success with offering this and that turning into clients then that book you for this day of support and then grow their scope with you over time in like future years?
Almost always they will grow their scope because they can see the value. So yeah, it's an incredible opportunity just to get in the door with a client.
Yeah, no, and that's a big one. I just think if I'm a freelancer thinking about adding this, or a company, I mean, you've talked about the drawbacks, but that carrot of future potential is, to me, intriguing. You mentioned this a little bit of being, getting up to speed quickly. How do you do that, Mary? How do you get up to speed on something that you didn't design from the beginning? And like, what does that 1 hour pre-meeting with the client, what does that even look like?
Yeah, so I alluded to this when we were talking about the services, but just to get like a little bit deeper so you all can do this for yourself if you want to do it. Um, So that first meeting is, like I said, it is 1 hour, and I feel like we usually take the full amount of time because it is that final meeting when everything is ready. So usually we'll start with understanding the basics of the event if we don't know them already, which is like how many people are coming? Can you remind me where the venue is? Just like those really basic things. What's the timing? And then we'll go more into timing because one of the things that we have to know no matter what is like when do we need to be there and when are other people showing up? Like, I think we can all agree that the timing is one of the most important pieces of an event. So we'll go there next. And whether they've represented that through an on-site timeline or it just lives in their brain or it's somewhere else or it's a program, maybe we'll go through like the script because they have it in there. That's the thing is you never know where this information is coming from, but we have them share with wherever they have it held. And then we take our own notes. So that's the thing. We are taking all of their information and putting it into our format so that we can execute day of. And that format is a workbook that we use. I think I've talked about it on here before. And we have an on-site timeline that we always make. So as they're talking, we're pulling that information and making our own on-site timeline. And it sounds hard, but we have a system. It's really easy. And that is what we create as our source of truth. So in that meeting, it is fully just like an informational meeting. So I can go into more detail, but hopefully that makes some sense.
I feel like that meeting must feel like a little bit of drinking from a fire hose. And I'm curious if you've ever asked for a document and they kind of look at you with big eyes of like, what do you mean about I don't know, probably not floor plan, but so think of like script. What do you mean script? And you're going, oh no, your event's 3 days away.
Yeah, absolutely. We've gotten in those situations before. And that's one of the things that I haven't said yet that might be one of the biggest call outs of this service is that you do not have the opportunity to be proactive. It is purely a reactive service. And that sucks because as professionals, we want to do what we can to get ahead of anything, but that's not what this is. It's using your expertise to react appropriately. So they're going to say, I don't have a script. And I'm like, okay, just curious, like how are folks going to deliver their remarks? And they're going to be like, oh, everybody's just going to bring their own. And I'm like, all right, so who's just like in charge of making sure that people get there? Like asking some curious questions to make sure like they're thinking about what they need to be thinking about. And in most times they are. It just might not be the way that we recommend. And so at that point, we're just figuring out how to work within their process.
Yeah, I'm guessing you also have to be quite flexible to offer something like this. Is there a step during this pre-event process that you would say is essential to being successful?
Yes, like if I could pick one, I know I've listed a number of things. But even if this is like terrible, but even if you cannot get like face-to-face meeting time with them and they're like, I really just need you to show up and help, it is that 1 hour or however much time you need of event familiarization on your own time. Like, please take time on your own. And I think most of us do this for any event that we're involved in to review the run of show or just any materials. And so that's the second piece is to make sure that they are giving you some materials before the event. I don't think I would ever agree to doing this if they shared nothing with me. Like I have to give me anything, something like some contract or some timeline. And so luckily I've never been put in this position where they haven't had anything to share with me. Sometimes they're protective of what they want to share. And I'm like, that's totally fine. I don't need everything, but like, give me the most important documents, please. And so that's what I would say. Just like take the time to review and get some documentation, and then I think you can be essential. Like you can do the best job that you can because you're professionals, right? So we should be able to take a piece of paper and be able to figure out what needs to be done.
And doing this kind of day of service, even with your limited scope, you're saying you are coming pretty late into the planning process for these events that you're offering the service for. So what are some of those challenges that you've experienced offering this day of coordination when you're coming in so close to the event?
There honestly are so many challenges, and I think that goes back to why a lot of people don't offer it. out of everything I could say today, there are probably more challenges than anything else I could talk about. So it is challenging. I'm not going to lie to you, but like I said, I somehow thrive in that chaos. So when we're being brought in that late, like I said before, we are very reactive, and so one of the particular things that we've noticed is like an issue with food count or something like that. And that it's usually too late for us to do something about that because it's due, final numbers a few days or so before the event. And we catch something and we're like, well, with this type of food, you really probably didn't order enough or something like that. And so that's a challenge because what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So what we do is we bring it up to them, right? But once again, we're going to roll with it and give them some alternate like solution suggestions or something like that. How can we make the food stretch, or remind them that like not everybody's going to show up to your event. And so like, let's just see like what those numbers are and we'll figure out how to react. So that's just one example of like some key challenges. Another thing is with a fundraising event that we did recently, someone that I'm trying to say this nicely. They didn't think that we needed to have bid cards. And it was like the whole point. It was like the one way that we were going to fundraise that night. And then there was like a miscommunication on printing them. And so what ended up we had to do was we got printer paper and wrote people's bid numbers on them and handed them out to them. And it looks terrible. So if you know anything about that process, it doesn't look good. The paper is see-through. It's not double-sided. Like it's not ideal for like a raise the paddle situation. And it's embarrassing, right? It's embarrassing because you as like an event professional don't want to represent yourself in a way where you're like, I forgot to do the bid card, so we did this thing that looks terrible. Like that's not the situation. You are helping them fix a problem that they created, and it might look bad on you. So that's another reason why you have to consider like if this is worth it for you. And so normally when we do day of, I'm not asking for any publicity, I'm not asking for them to like mention in the program that we've been involved in this event. I don't need any kind of thanks. You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily even wearing a name badge. It's not like I'm trying to be sneaky, but we're there to provide a behind the scenes service. And I don't necessarily want to be associated with the hot mess. I'm just there for the client to help them out. So I think that there is a balance there that you can set for yourself to make yourself a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that's a good point that you're more of an extension of the actual client versus we are EP events. Because that's something I know I've struggled with certain events that I get brought on late. And it's like, I don't know if I want to be associated with this. Because to your point, you're a resource to provide solutions, but sometimes the solution you can provide with that short of a timeline isn't, optimal. And sometimes it's just kind of, you got to live with what you got. But also I can't imagine like your example of not having big cards without having you guys, like, would they have come to that realization, or would they truly have had an event being like, time to raise your paddles and no one has a paddle?
Yeah, it gives me like horror story vibes for sure. So yeah, I don't know what they would do. And that's the other thing is when we do this work, like I feel a lot of stuff in my heart, and I just feel like I'm like, oh my gosh, they really need us. Like we're really helping them. And that I think is something that brings me coming back for more, ironically, is like we can do a lot of good when it's just day of. We can do better when we have more, we can support them more before the event. But this sometimes is all people can afford.
Before we shift into kind of on-site, I did want to have you highlight and see if you could share a little bit of your process. Like you're very specific there with saying it's 1 hour of a call with the client and you're doing 1 hour of prep on your side. So that's 2 hours of prep work. Like is that a process that you've refined over time to be that specific, and do you think being that specific has set you up for success avoiding like scope creep?
I think it does help avoid scope creep. This scope is so entirely limited that is not common that creep occurs because we literally are talking the week of the event. They don't have like time to try to give us stuff really, if that makes sense. So luckily that doesn't happen too much. But what does happen, so first of all, to answer your question, I think yes, the specificity is something we've honed over time, and I think it's important for them to call out. Also, from just the proposal side, I want them to see what we're doing with that time so that they know you are paying us for these 2 hours before the event because we have to have them to be successful to do the task. So yes. But along with that, we have some scopes where folks have done, well, a little bit more, like maybe they want like 5 hours of consulting before the event. and then we execute. To me, that's a different scope. That's not something like we're talking about today necessarily. But those have come from these types of situations. And that's what will push people towards if they seem like they're going to go into scope creep and ask a ton of questions and all that.
No, appreciate you elaborating on that. You kind of talked about some of these challenges you faced, but how do you set your on-site team up for success when because you are more than just you. Sometimes it's other people on your team executing. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I thought that this was a good call out for sure. Because if you have the opportunity, listeners, to bring a team on site and it is not just yourself, all of these situations that I've described, they not only affect you, but they affect the team that is on site. And sometimes that's harder, right? Because you hire these people who are good at their jobs and they want to do well. And so when you are from the beginning saying, hey, this is going to be a hot mess and a sticky situation, but we're going to do it, sometimes they feel a certain way about it, right? So I think you have to first pick the right team members that are going to be on site for this situation. It's people who are very flexible and can be thrown into any type of role to make it work because we don't have a lot of preparation time. Sometimes, we don't know what the needs were going to be. So maybe they come on thinking that they're going to work with vendors, but they get there and they're a volunteer manager because the other one didn't show up, And so flexible people. But once you have the team secured, how you actually get them set up for success, we will always send them a no before you go. We don't necessarily do a pre-meeting with them unless the event is particularly complicated, then I will scope that in. But most of the time, it's just a no before you go, key information. Here's where you go to park, and here's when you need to arrive. Here's what you wear. But then we also will give them the on-site timeline that we've created from the pre-event meeting that we had with the client. This is the case kind of no matter what event we do, but I think it's especially important for this day of management situation because they also are getting thrown into something. And normally when you have a day of team, they can ask you and you're their source of truth, but you also don't really know a lot. And so how can you really support them in their role? And I think it's by giving them all the information that you have and then just acknowledging that we're all going to be flexible beyond that.
Flexible. That seems to be the word of this
Ooh.
episode, just being flexible. All right. So in this process, we're now ready to be on site. We're ready to execute. What are the biggest responsibilities of a day of event management team?
Okay. So this could vary, of course. Typically, what we'll support day of is we will become the main point of contact for the event, which is crazy to say because we're literally just getting thrown into it. And we're the event manager. Like that is what they're hiring us to do so that they can go do other things. And so as crazy as that is, I would say we become the liaison with the client because we are the point person, but we don't have enough information to maybe make every call. So we can discuss directly with that client contact on what needs to happen. But we become that face basically of the internal behind the scenes event. And so the vendors know who we are. We'll introduce ourselves to them. We'll introduce ourselves to the volunteers if it's applicable, to the registration team if it's applicable, so that everybody knows like, hi, we just met, but we're in charge. So like, let us know if you need anything. And so I think setting up those expectations with all the parties involved is important. Hopefully the client is doing that, but if not, just, take the time on site to be able to do that. So one person is in charge of the whole shebang typically. And that means a lot of times what I've seen people specifically ask for is making sure that everything is happening on time. So I'm like, we can do that. You give me a timeline. I'll make sure everything's happening on time. That's easy, And so just having that type of oversight. And then if we have a second person on site, I've alluded to this a lot, but usually they're in charge of volunteers. And that's not so hard, I feel like, to do day of in general. But once again, it's making sure they have the information to be successful in that. And then the third role that we often will provide day of is stage management. And that's challenging because sometimes you need more prep time to like get familiar with the speakers, the program, and like those types of things. But at minimum, we ask for a script and then we make sure that the stage manager is there for the rehearsal. So they do have time to at least prep a little bit. And so I think we do the things that we need to set them up for the most success that we can. But that is how those are the roles in which we're executing on site.
And that's very topical, Mary, because my deep dive next week is all about stage management and just how much time goes into it. So it'll dovetail nicely with this. So you alluded, you're the lead for vendors. Does that mean too, you're like the lead for the venue and making sure tables or room layout is set the way that client event host wanted it to be, all of that?
Yes, exactly. And and all of this is because there's usually some moment when the client, not only do they need to focus on other things, but they're like involved in the program. They're like speaking, or they're like, they have to go get ready for 2 hours. So they're going to go change and like do all their things and meet with people. And they're not even going to be on site. So they need somebody to be on site to just answer questions. So, yes, and all of those things.
And we talk about this too. I feel like it's nice to say what you do, but also what you don't do in this role. So you're in charge. Does that mean like you and your team are like assembling centerpieces?
Sometimes it depends. That's the thing about day of that does suck, is like you just have to do what needs to happen to get it done, and you don't have as much proactive time to catch that stuff before. But I think it's helping prioritize what those are. So if that means like there truly is nobody else that can do the centerpieces, then yeah, we're gonna do the centerpieces. But if it's like the tables and chairs haven't been set up, that's probably where I set up for relying. I'm like, well, you better call your volunteers because they need to set these up right now. That type of situation. What else do we not do? I wouldn't be comfortable being like a registration lead. I think sometimes we have to jump in and help that registration process flow, but like they know their guests. And so I want to keep that with whoever knows their guests. That's not something I'm comfortable just like jumping in on. Or something heavily program related, like a show call or Logan or something like that. I'd be like, this is the first time I've seen your program. I'm not the person to do this successfully. So those are probably some of my no's.
No, I mean, and that you're covering a broad scope already. So it's good to have a couple roles that you're like, nope. I'm like, you don't want me to operate your cameras. No, could I try it? Sure. It's going to look bad, but kind of as we're winding down here, what advice do you give someone who's debating hiring a full service scope with pre-event work or just a day of person? And what are they considering?
Yeah, so I think hopefully I've painted through the conversation that there are pros and cons to each situation. Obviously, it is great to be able to hire someone to support you pre-event and day of, to get all the information so that they are rocking and rolling and can just like really be amazing day of. I think that's the golden situation, right? But when you're considering like which situation you want to do, I do think a lot of it comes down to money. So if you're in a pinch, but you know you need help, and I love talking about this actually, because when I worked for a nonprofit organization, I didn't know that there were day of people that I could hire. I knew that there were staffing agencies, but that wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted an event expert because I could not be everywhere at once. And it was really challenging for me, to be honest. And so I'm like, that situation, like that is when you can use somebody who is perhaps just day of. You are organized enough to be able to pass off expectations and responsibilities for them to take some piece of the puzzle day of, then maybe that's all you need. If you have a robust enough team that's covering a lot of the event and you just need somebody to make sure it's all happening, then maybe you just need day of. But if your support needs are greater than that, then I think that's where pre-event comes in. If you need more strategy, then you need more pre-event support. So hopefully this is making sense, but I think that there is a world in which you know best kind of what your needs are and what you have the budget for.
Yeah, and I think this is a great add-on for anybody who maybe works internally in events, but they're like a team of one, where like all you want. And I've worked with some from a production perspective where I come in and produce for them because I had a client who was a one woman show and did everything from hotel reservations to booking speakers to the food and beverage. And I just was like, you can't be everywhere at once. Like, what do you do if there's a problem at registration and your program's about to start? Like, you physically can't be in two places at once. And I think, Mary, you make a great point compared to like a day of like the staffing agencies where that's just like a body, right, to help you, that this package and service you're talking about is more of, it is an event expert. Sure, it had its drawbacks of what help you can really do in terms of avoiding major challenges, but so much of it is reactive of how you, an event expert, would react and solve that problem versus somebody who's just a staffer, unsure how to, and they're still having, like, they would create a bottleneck and still have to keep going back to the main client person, but your team could solve that problem first.
Yeah. And in some cases too, we've been hired in this role more as peace of mind. Like there have been times when I'm like, I don't know if you need us, but there's someone in charge, like internally, and they like the event is theirs. They don't have to be part of the program. Like they are just executing the event, but they just feel better if someone else has their back. And those are my favorite situations because they're locked in and they just need somebody else. And I'm like, great, this is perfect.
No, and that's a great example. How can clients set their event management team up for success, even if they only hire, like your company for a limited scope?
Yeah, so this is a place I wanted to leave it with just as a reminder for those listening. We covered it a little bit before, but it would be to set your event management team up for success to make sure that you are organized in a way that you can pass off information to people. So is your information saved in a list or is it in your brain? Like those types of questions. And so even if there's a limited scope, if you're organized in a way that if unfortunately something happened to you tomorrow that people could pick up the pieces, then that's going to set up other people for success just to be able to help you. So that's probably what I would say is stay as organized as you can. Don't let things live in your brain and then you can pass stuff off better.
And our final question, this is from me, Mary, because as we're talking, I'm just curious, what would you say for a listener who is maybe a freelancer or a business owner in the event space looking to add this offering? What is your piece of advice for them?
I would say to try it, but to try it like with confidence. This is a role where you really do have to be comfortable with discomfort. And once again, I think that's why a lot of people don't do it. So if you think that this sounds remotely interesting, I think some of you will be like, there's no way I'm gonna do that. But if some of you are like, actually, I think maybe I could do that, then just do it like with confidence for sure. Think about all the events that you've been a part of before. You can bring all those examples and expertise to be able to help mitigate and troubleshoot problems on site. So if you're just going in with that mindset, like you are a helper, you are a problem solver, you are not there to create change, you are there to help execute an event and do a good job at that, then I think this would be for you. And so you might as well just try it and offer your support to an organization or a company because they may just need, like I was saying, a second person who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and to your point, it's a great opportunity for growth, right? If they don't have a lot of decisions, unfortunately, get made with what we do because of budget. And it's like, if this is a way just to show and build a little bit of that relationship of what you're doing, and then you can upsell it later. I know I've started to like day of roles more because there's only so much pre-work I can do. And there's only so many events that I can have like full ownership over a big piece. And sometimes it's fun to come in and be a part, or I would even say to other planners, if you can join Mary's team or another lead planner as like one of their on-site team mates, like not being the team lead per se, like you, Mary, but maybe someone you're hiring, is also really exciting. Cause I think I joke, it's like speed dating. You get to kind of try out another system, see an event, work with new people. And that could lead to other stuff too.
I'm glad you said that because that is actually one of the things I love about this is it's very freeing to not know everything. It's like you literally go execute and then you're done. Like you're not part of it 6 months before. You're not as emotionally invested. You're going to do the best job that you can, but you feel less attached to it, which I think helps, to be honest. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's an emotional load, right? We take with some events that you're so involved with that when you're just kind of jumping in, it's like, here's my toolbox. I'm going to try to fix as much as I can, but like the ride is already running and we're fixing it as we go kind of thing. It's just a little freeing. And then, yeah, being done. So it is another revenue source, which I think is an interesting thing to think about. And if you're maybe someone who's not a planner, does something else in events, maybe think about how you could tweak this methodology Mary uses in her business to your particular situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great filler for sure. So I encourage you all to try it if you don't try this and let us know how it goes. But that does bring us to the end of our episode, and Logan has our bonus tip.
Yes, this is for my friends who maybe get a little distracted. I've been trying to do some of my CEO days every month and everything. And one of my notes I jotted down as I was doing it is anytime you're trying to like stay focused on a task, whether it's a CEO day or maybe some deep work you're doing for your business, have a place. And for me, it's a notebook that I have open next to me for where your random thoughts can go. Because I would have a bad habit, I realized, where I would have a random thought and I'd open up a tab and be like, let me just search this random thing. I'm telling you folks, like really random, from like, I need to buy someone a birthday present, to like, what is that deep business book that so-and-so mentioned to me? And like, I should email this person. Like, it's literally like squirrel brain. And I have in my notebook that I use for my CEO days, I actually have pages now of like the random squirrel. I have my July retreat, random thoughts, but I like, my brain feels like I've done it if I just write it down, and then I can stay on the task. So anytime you're trying to do deep work, get a notebook or a place that you can capture the random thoughts that are off track, so that you can stay on track. And then later on, you can go back and look in that notebook and realize that, oh yeah, you need to order new Unity headsets. I didn't need to do that in the moment, but like, it was in my brain. So that's my bonus tip.
That's a great bonus tip. It's like a true brain dump on a notebook. Just let it, like mini brain dumps as they come. I love it. All right, everybody, that does bring us to the end. And so thank you so much for listening to another episode of the podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can email us at bettereventspod@gmail.com. And please join us for the 2025 Better Events Conference coming right up here soon. You can visit bettereventspod.com/conference for more information. You can also connect with Logan and I directly on LinkedIn. Just let us know you heard about us from the podcast. And if you want more business or Better Events content, you can join our private community on Substack. And thank you so much for listening. We will see you again next Wednesday.